have a very special guest here with me, my mom, who you may not know this, or you may know this very well, but her wisdom shapes so much of these videos and what we say. We actually plan quite a few of the videos together, but she's not the biggest fan of being on camera. So I actually asked recently if you guys would be interested in seeing a Q&A video with my mom, and the response was tremendous, and apparently many of you did. So because of you guys, I was able to convince her to actually join me for a very special video today. And I took a lot of the questions that you asked, and we're going to try to get through as many as we can. I will leave timestamps in the description below so that you can, if you had a specific question, you can find where to find that question and the answer in the video. So let's get started. You go by Mom for most people, I guess, at this point in your life, sometimes Grandma. So just as an intro, this is my mom, Cindy. She is in the unusual position of still homeschooling while also already being a grandma of 3 grandkids. So that's pretty impressive. I'm not sure that there's that many grandmas who are still homeschooling their own children at the same time that their grandkids are starting to be homeschooled. But we have an awesome family. And first question that we got asked, which was, why did you decide to homeschool in the first place?
I decided to homeschool largely because I wanted to spend time with my kids. I didn't want them to be away from me. So when kids go to school, they have to spend most of their day actually in school. And so that was one reason. Another reason was I personally, I like knowing things and I like being able to do things, having skills, but I hated my school experience. I really disliked it, and I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted them both to love learning, to have a bunch of skills, and to enjoy their childhood educational experience. So yeah, I wanted to be with them, and I wanted them to have a better experience being educated than I did.
How have you stuck with homeschooling for so many years, which I think we're around year 27 now? And this is from a subscriber who says she's in her first year and she's feeling pretty tired out and overwhelmed.
Okay, I love it. I love kids. I love teaching kids. I love homeschooling. And an advice level to someone who's struggling in that first year is the first year of anything is hard. You're just on a huge learning curve. Don't base your experience on that first year because it is very difficult. There's a lot to learn. But the other advice I would have is if you're struggling, try to learn to love it and find those things where you can just take pure joy in and do more of that. Asking an artist, how can you still paint after 27 years? It's who they are. It's what they love. It's not hard to do something you truly enjoy doing. So if it's a real struggle, focus on what parts of it do you like and see if you can grow that.
I think that is very good advice. Yeah, when you're starting out, something like homeschool for you today is not the challenge it was for you many years ago when you had 4 and 5 small children and the chaos, and also no internet
and no experience.
And no experience.
So ask anyone who's got a lifetime of experience behind them, is your job today as hard as it was when you started? Hopefully they say no.
Okay, what has changed the most in your homeschooling approach from early days until now?
Probably what's changed the most in myself is I just don't worry as much as I used to. Those first few experimental children, you really don't know how it's going to turn out. And worrying, will they ever learn their times tables? Will they ever be able to write a paper? Just how is this going to turn out? I don't worry so much anymore. That's probably the biggest change.
Because now you have the experience to see that even if they struggle with something for a really long time, typically they get there in the end.
They get there in the end. Some advice I once heard was they usually don't do that in college, and I think that was back in potty training days. So if
they'll be potty trained by college.
They'll be potty trained by college. So don't worry about it.
No stress. Can you share one of your biggest struggles in homeschool and how you handled that struggle or those struggles?
Okay. I'll share the biggest one by contrasting it with some other ones. My second daughter was dyslexic and struggled to learn, and especially to learn how to read. My son was hearing impaired and had struggles, of course, with hearing impairment. And I had a daughter who struggled to cooperate with the learning process. So, dyslexia, you can handle it. Hearing impairment takes special intervention, but not a problem. The non-cooperative child, now that's a challenge. And how did I overcome it? I would say more like, how did you live through it and still have positive relationships throughout? It takes intentional, focused effort to address non-cooperation, especially with that, whatever you want to label that kid, that strong-willed or that determined little child,
spirited,
who's going to resist their education at every angle. And that one lasted the entire educational career from preschool to graduation. So it's some things don't expect overcoming. Try to learn, like, how are you going to navigate it, and things continue, not all things end. So and it can be okay.
And you can still maintain the positive relationship and a strong relationship.
Yeah.
Even when she might never have your same view on the need for education.
The need to write neatly or complete something might.
So
yeah.
But you can navigate these different things and still value the relationship, and not allow the relationship to be broken in the process, but also not necessarily let a strong-willed kid do whatever they want to.
Right.
So you've raised a large family. I'm the oldest of 8 kids. There is quite a wide age gap between all of us, so we're not all like the same age. And you've homeschooled many children at the same time. How did you juggle the needs of multiple children throughout the school day?
Okay, I would say don't try to be fair. Give each child what they need, and each child needs different things. So don't try to be even, don't try to be fair. Your dyslexic child is going to need more than your gifted child, those kind of things. The other thing I would say is don't do it alone. If you happen to have a large family, I know you have many people in your house. So I didn't do it alone. Older kids gave younger kids their spelling tests. They listened to them read their reading passages. They were conscripted to do flashcard drills of multiplication with younger kids. They made lunches. Many different tasks were given to the many different people who were part of our homeschool. It wasn't just mom. We were a school altogether.
A homeschool family.
We were a homeschool family, and each one did what they could. And I think that really helped group ownership. Mm-hmm. Kids teaching other kids and their siblings certain skills that they have, I think really did benefit the overall feeling of we were in it together.
Mm-hmm. And I still miss the lunches made by sister who is now in college and can no longer make us lunch.
She's a good cook.
She's a really good cook.
So's her brother.
So's her brother, yeah. He could come and make us lunch. I'd be okay with that. What were some of the best things you did when you started off homeschooling?
I think, okay, back in the day, before YouTube and other ways of finding out information, homeschool conferences and curriculum fairs, those were really good things to go to and invest in. Now I think there's easier ways to get information, and you don't have to travel to a conference, or necessarily you can look things.
Virtual conferences nowadays.
Yeah, you can look things up online as far as curriculum. You can see a curriculum review.
You could watch a review and a flip through video done by your favorite Rachel from 7 and All.
You used to have to go somewhere where someone had their
or
curriculum,
just look at a catalog
set out, and then you could touch them and decide whether you wanted to buy them in these good old days. And reading books about child development, just different learning styles, just learning as much as you can. If homeschooling is going to be your field, be an expert in your field. You will feel more confident with what you're doing. You'll have a lot less fear in, is this what I should be doing? Are my kids okay as far as their developmental milestones? The more knowledgeable you are, I think, brings a lot of peace to the journey.
I think that's a really good advice. If we're treating homeschooling like it's our job, then we wouldn't do a job without taking time for further education and for learning the skills needed for that specific job. So, most of us are coming into homeschool not from, we were trained for years how to homeschool. So we do have to learn the process of this. Do you have any particular favorite curriculums?
Yes. Just like I have favorite children. I always say to every child, you're my favorite. It's true. So it's really hard to pick one. I love many different curriculums for many different reasons, but I would have to say among the tops are Sunlight, Sing, Spell, Read, and Write, Life of Fred, Apologia, everything. See, did I forget? I probably forgot some. Matthew C. has come in handy.
Now, how do you nurture a lifelong love of learning in your kids?
I think I love learning. I love knowing things. I'm interested in many things, and I think so are my kids. So just honestly loving knowing things and being able to do things. So applied knowledge, showing them why is it cool to be able to know things, because then you can do something with it. So applying what you know.
And I think as we grew up, we all kind of got into our own niches of certain kind of knowledge we were really interested in, and you were always really good about kind of supporting that interest with mainly like buying the tools that we needed to do it, with giving us the opportunity and the chance to learn more about certain skills, especially like I think of Mary Grace with her art, and that wasn't something that you knew a whole lot about. You didn't know about art, but you were there to take her to the art store. You were there to, see what she needed to be able to learn and grow in her knowledge on that subject. What was your approach to the big problem of socialization for your children? This is the famous, how will kids be socialized? What if they turn out to be introverted? Oh no. How did you help your children make friends?
Okay. One, there isn't a socialization issue with homeschooling. So it's like asking, how did you solve a problem that didn't exist? Well, I didn't. Mostly because the problem doesn't exist. But did my children have friends? Yes, they did. When they had each other, they also have a big family. They have lots of cousins. They also lived by people in neighborhoods, and also church was a big part of life, and the church community. I would say, as far as supporting my children's friendships, our house was the house where we had game nights.
Movie nights.
Movie nights. I was very involved in their youth group outings. Like I was the chaperone parent, or the parent planning games, or those kind of things. So, but socialization in children is a universal concept. Can you teach children to live well with others, whether they're homeschooled or in public school, is a parenting skill that is necessary, even if your kids go to public schools. How do you socialize them to make sure they care about other people? It's not a unique problem to homeschooling.
Socialization doesn't just mean being around other people, but learning what do you do when you're around other people. Are you caring about them? Are you respecting them? Are you putting other people before yourself and seeking to understand? Are you bullying them?
And people aren't only the people in your grade or your age. People of all shapes, sizes, races, nationalities, all these things. How are your children doing? Interacting with people in general, and that's not just a homeschool issue.
And are your kids much more comfortable interacting with people who are just like them, or are they very, very comfortable interacting with people who don't have a life like them, who aren't in the same stage of life? And that is something I think we've always prioritized too. It's like, I'm not looking for all my friends to be just like me, type of thing. We don't need an echo chamber of our own voice. How did moving abroad affect your homeschool, and was homeschooling looked on favorably when you moved to Asia? So that was quite a long time ago, and things have changed a bit.
In a word, no. So homeschooling defined as the children learn in their house as taught by their mother. Largely,
it didn't exist.
It didn't exist. Now there were the odd, usually foreigner person who did do that. I was one of those odd foreigner people who did it, but for the most part, it didn't exist. Was it trusted form of education? Mostly not. But
I think people just kind of thought they're Americans. Who knows what?
Americans do strange things anyway, and
they eat weird food.
It was just marked up as one of the strange things that we did. It didn't cause any problems, but it's definitely an odd thing to do.
And I think with moving to Asia, it mainly kind of changed how we have to plan our homeschool. We got a lot more intentional about not using up workbooks, so going the extra mile, writing down all the answers in a lined notebook instead of in the workbook, and ordering things months in advance. It just got a lot harder to get supplies, especially years ago, because there was no digital resources. Now it's a little easier because you can print digital resources, but it's still not all that easy. Just on stuff acquisition, even good crayons or something, you hear about, oh, this is the best kind of crayon. Oh wait, we can't get it. Little things like that. Or we need the paper fasteners for our craft. Can't get them. Those little things that are just, when you're using curriculum written in America, and then you're not living in America, some things just are a lot. The supplies are kind of challenging to acquire. We have different supplies that you probably can't get. But yeah, that was one challenge. What are your favorite homeschool tools other than curriculum?
A laminator, yes. A paper cutter, the old-fashioned chop your finger off.
She's had that paper cutter for my entire life, 30 years now, and she's gotten her money's worth.
A big stapler, a whiteboard, and tables. Never underestimate the power of a table and dedicated table space to be able to do your schoolwork on.
What would be your number one piece of advice to a new homeschool mom?
It's okay. You can do it.
Don't freak out.
It'll be all right. Number one piece of advice. Okay. Focus on cooperation issues and win the hearts and the minds of your children that they are the biggest component of their educational journey. They are the kings and queens of their education, and they will do the most. They can bring the best component to their own education. And so if they think education is something done to them, it's not. It's something they do for themselves. And so really to focus on their ownership in their education, and that they get excited about it and that they own it.
And what do you think of the philosophy of better to start late than early with reading instruction, particularly with special needs? So there's a big movement in homeschool to not do formal lessons, not do reading instruction until about age 6, possibly even 7 or so, especially when dealing with special needs.
Okay, from my experience, my educational philosophy is you go from what they don't know and can't do and move them to what they need to know and can do. So my special needs dyslexic daughter, we started early, and we started with a cow says moo and a sheep says ba. She mixed those up continuously, and getting that solid was a solid 6 months of focused attention, of not mixing up different animal sounds. Now, that is very important, you can categorize this and match it to that. So we didn't start late, we just started on something else. What are the foundational skills that they need? With my son, it was how sounds are produced. So a pre-reading skill is making of sounds, and because he couldn't hear the sounds, he needed a lot of focused attention on the shape of his mouth and other things so that he could produce sounds. So it's not so much starting early as start where they are and start with what skill do they need to develop. And because they might need to develop a special skill that most people just absorb, it's just already there, it might take them longer, but I see no reason to wait until 6 or 8 years old to say, okay, a cow says moo, or you need to put your tongue on your teeth. So those kind of things, you just need to start where they are and take as long as it takes to build the skill to get them to where they need to be.
So this is coming from an understanding of reading instruction doesn't start when you sit down with a book and you say but at. It starts way before that.
Right. They need to develop also the context for their world to understand, to read. So there's a lot of foundational, they just need to understand many vocabulary words, so speaking, telling them a story, having them tell you back the story. There's tons of things to work on before this A it says so there's a lot of pre-skills that I see no benefit in waiting to build those skills.
And typically we have started pre-reading instruction around 3 years old. With most of those skills, even like intentionally working on the animal sounds and on looking at letters and trying to make connections. And I know that that's not necessarily the way that most homeschoolers think of it, but we have found that to be pretty successful, both with those to whom reading comes very easily and those to whom it does not come easily. But to us, starting reading instruction doesn't mean you're sitting down with a book and a serious curriculum yet.
And I think something that also comes easier is the whole value system of knowing things and learning things and working on that.
And working to know things.
Working to know things. So a 3-year-old, they're totally okay to work for a while, not all day long, but to work on knowing something.
And they get excited.
Right.
They get really excited when they realize I can do something that I couldn't do a little bit ago.
Yeah, so it's not really like a punishment or something bad, or to say you're hearing impaired, therefore you can't know anything. or you're dyslexic, that therefore you can't know anything. I think it does a disservice, especially to special needs kids, to treat them as if that's all they are. All you are is dyslexic. All you are is hearing impaired. It's not true. And
to even expect that learning will then necessarily be unpleasant and not fun. That it can be even more fulfilling when kids are learning something. And like, I know you were way more excited probably when they learned something than when I did, because you're like, okay, whatever.
We'll have to do a video just on her.
Special problems. Actually, I had someone ask me if you would write a book on homeschooling gifted students, because there aren't really a lot of books about that.
Just hang on tight there.
Don't fall off the train. Yeah. But yeah, so there are some people out there wondering when your book is coming. Okay. Maybe that will be the next project in your spare moments.
Not this week.
Not this week. But thank you so much for joining us today, and definitely let me know if you have leave any comments that you like on this video. Click like and subscribe to our channel if you want to continue to see more from the unusual 7 and all homeschooling family. Multiple generations homeschooling at the same time and having a lot of fun with it. Bye.
See you.